Earth deck builds for Splinterlands Modern Leagues at $50, $100, and $250 to get you even into possibly low gold, so stay tuned. Hello, hola, Kamusta. This is Luke with Luke Plays to Earn, as I help the krills of small investors play to earn, and hopefully we grow into something like a minnow, whale, something like that one day ourselves. And today we're talking about an Earth deck build for Splinterlands. We've already done fire, water, and so this is our third in this series. First though, I need to let you know that this video is presented by ZenSports, which right now is a company doing a NFT whitelist called ZenSportsia, which you can get into right now. You can see some of the NFTs, and there are going to be real NFT benefits for sports and esports fans. So if you're interested, please check them out. Alright, so let's jump into our Obsidian builds. Again, we're going to have $50, $100, and $250 builds. There are neutrals that you can add on that's not counted towards the builds, but they can be useful for some of your play in Obsidian and also across all your decks. Here are the breakpoints if you want to go for specific cards and look at which cards are most important at what levels. Between commons, rares, epics, and legendaries, and then over here to the right is the build. So you can access this Google Sheet here in the description, comments, or in my Discord. Now I do want to give a disclaimer that Obsidian isn't my favorite deck. It's not the one I go to the most often. It can be powerful, especially in bronze and low silver, because magic damage just tears through a lot of teams. However, I feel like more and more now, especially with the Chaos Legion cards, there are counters to magic, whether that is playing Thaddeus or more legendaries and epic cards that have Void and Void armor. So while Obsidian is okay, I don't prefer it as my favorite deck. There are other decks that I would go for first, like Water or Death are my favorite. Or even though General Sloan probably isn't as powerful, you are going to get better bang for your buck because a lot of the General Sloan and General Sloan cards are cheaper. So, you know, if Earth is something that you enjoy, you like, and you know, any of these decks can be viable for different situations. So it's not to say that, you know, don't go use this deck and spend your money in Obsidian. I'm just saying personally, it's not my favorite. So I want to give that disclaimer, although you can go use these decks to rent out these specific decks as well and try them out and see if you like Obsidian or see if you like, you know, the water or the fire deck I put out. We're also going to be putting out a life, death, and maybe a dragon deck as well. Now remember, I'm specifically looking at cards for the modern format, so this will not include alpha, betas, old reward, and promo cards. So also keep in mind that the meta may change, and when we go to a modern league only, this deck might be even more powerful. So I don't know, but here are the cards. I'm not going to go every single one of them, but you can check out this full list and pick and choose which cards you like, and maybe you can disagree with me at certain points and you know, swap out different cards or different levels. But this is what my best brain, my ability could do for $50, $100, and $250. So again, not going to go over every single card, but here on Peak Monsters, let's just go through some of the highlights. Starting with the Pelacor Mercenary. This one is a good one for all of your decks to at least get to level 3 because it gets a third attack point. The Morphoid, you want to get to level 3 as well. Just gives it thorns in certain scenarios that can be a good counter to sneak, or just put it in the front to absorb an initial tank shot and also do thorn damage. Hill Giant is worth getting to level 3. It can be very good for a low mana tank, and especially in things like Back to Basics, where it's all about putting in magic damage and a little bit of health, the Hill Giant can be great. The Venari Knifer can be good in certain situations with this high speed, especially when it gets enraged. It can jump up to 8 speed, so I definitely level up to level 3. It can also be put in the back to, again, block some sneak attack coming in and deal thorn damage back out. The Venari Scout 1 damage opportunity attacker isn't really that great to me until you get to that $100 level and you can unlock the second damage. Until then, the 1 opportunity damage usually doesn't make much of a difference, especially when a lot of the monsters have shields and things to protect it. Then Goblin Psychic is going to be one of your most important cards because it is going to create heals for your team, especially when it gets level 4. It can also hit Affliction and then they can't heal their tank anymore. So even at low levels, it's nice to get that extra health to keep it alive longer in case it gets hit by an opportunity or sneak attack. And then definitely level 4 once you unlock that $100 level 3 Obsidian. Most of the Untamed cards are just not worth it to level up. They're either too expensive or just not worth putting our money into. Nectar Queen is maybe at some of the more expensive decks worth it at least to get a level 1 or 2. It just can be good for some high melee matchups and has flying to dodge some shots. Wood Nymph isn't going to be used in the modern format, but I'd be renting this one for now. With Goblin Psychic, you can get the double heals. Moving on to rares, we got the Seedsmith, which is okay to level up to 4 on our level 4 Obsidian. Unfortunately, he gets more powerful in gold when he gets the poison, but we can't achieve that with our $250 build. Goblin Tower and Mycelic Infantry aren't ones that I use quite often unless it's reverse speed because they're so slow or heavy melee matchups. Regal Periton though is one of the most important cards, so getting this to level 3 for our $100 deck is absolutely super important because it gets the extra magic damage, and even on a $50 deck with only level 2 Obsidian, getting that extra speed can get more dodge chances. So this is going to be one of your go-to cards. Slip Spawn is a decent backline tank with taunt to draw some of their backline damage away from your main tank and from your vulnerable midline shooters. But unfortunately, it does have no capabilities to survive long. So it does usually get shredded within 1 round or 2, so it's not a card that I really level up that much. Although if you pair it with something like the Spirit Hoarder, the neutral monster that can have triage to heal up the Slip Spawn, that can make it survive a little bit longer and make it have more use. Centauri Mage at level 1 is worth it to get it with Return Fire. I like putting it sometimes in the snipe position, where if it gets hit by a ranged attacker with snipe, it will return some of that damage. Also with Obsidian, it will do 2 magic damage. It'd be nice to get it to level 3 for the extra magic damage, but you can see here, $34 is just not going to be worth it. Moving on, Acid Shooter is not one that I care too much about. I'm just not a huge fan of Scatter Shot for most monsters with the randomness of it. Although in our $250 deck, I did add a level 3 because with 2 range damage, it's at least a little more strong than with just the 1 random Scatter Shot damage. Same thing with Hunter Jarks. Getting level 1 is fine until our $250 deck. You can get it to level 3 and then now it has 4 range damage. Beatrix Ironhand is an untamed card that's a little more expensive, so I only put it in my $250 deck when we can get it to level 2, and it has 3 range damage and close range in case it falls into front. Minica Headhunter, even though it's a little more expensive, worth getting at the level 1. I especially saw this card just completely wreck in the ZenSports tournament. It's 4 range damage plus snare to hit down any flying monsters is really useful in things like earthquake battles or a tank that's hard to hit. So that is a card that at level 1 is going to be useful, at least at your $100 and $250 decks. It's a little too expensive, unfortunately, for our $50 deck. Bilshka is a decent card, obviously one of the legendary reward cards that is probably the least used for most players, but the camouflage with Obsidian having 2 magic damage on it will be nice, and then for a $250 build, getting it to level 3 so that it can have 3 magic damage with Obsidian. Either the Fanged, again, is one of those legendaries that I don't find myself using too much. Again, it's one of the cheaper ones, so for a $250 deck, I do like putting it in there with 2 range damage. At least it does a little more to the sneak attack. I often actually put it as a secondary tank so that hopefully it scavenges up health, and with like the Goblin Psychic and Wood Nymph, it can do double heal. So if it falls in front with, 8 HP and it's getting double heals, sometimes it can be a useful just secondary tank. Other than that though, I don't find a ton of use case for it all the time, especially because with Obsidian I'd rather focus my magic damage towards the front line. Now Queen Mycelia paired with Obsidian is great. That's why it's one of the more expensive ones. You're going to have Protect and then Amplify if you can get the level 2. Unfortunately, it's just going to be too expensive for us. You can see a level 2 is $64 even for our $250 build. That is quite a bit. You can maybe argue that it's just worth it, but most people are liking this card because of Mylor, and that's why some of these cards in the Earth deck are so expensive, because Mylor is still so powerful in this game, and being an untamed monster is still going to be played in the modern format. So something like Amplify, when it increases all those thorn damage, is going to be really nice, although it can be useful for things like your Failed Summoner Magic Reflect or the Morphoid or the Gnarring Knifer with Thorns, even if you don't have Mylor. However, for our builds, we can at least get level 1 at the higher expensive decks and get Protect monsters getting 2 armor for our whole team. Now let's go over some quick neutrals that I think are important to the Earth deck here. Supply Runner when you get to that $250 level 4 Obsidian build. Swiftness is really good. Earth struggles with some low speed, and so adding a card like Supply Runner is going to buff up your whole team. Uraeus level 2 with the 2 sneak attack. Pair that up with your Goblin for a double sneak attack can surprise your team on the Earth deck when most people are thinking, magic damage towards the front line. Magi of Chaos is the one you're going to grab because of Obsidian adding extra magic damage, especially when you get to level 3 in your upper $250 deck. That's going to become 4 magic damage. As I said earlier, Spirit Hoarder is definitely a card you're going to need to grab even at level 1. It is so important with this Earth deck because it already uses magic damage, so Obsidian's going to buff that to 2, and it can triage things like the Slip Spawn, put it in back with the Taunt, and it can have an effect where you can heal your frontline tank with Goblin Psychic, and then your Slip Spawn in back with the Taunt, you can use Spirit Hoarder to heal that up with triage. So there you go. Those are Earth decks for $50, $100, and $250. Thank you for ZenSports for presenting this video. Let me know what you guys think about the Earth deck. Is it one of your favorites? For me, again, it's not one of my favorites, but maybe you're finding great success with it. Personally, I like using my low Earth, but the Obsidian I feel like has too many counters towards it right now. But maybe that's just where I'm playing at in high silver and low gold. Let me know your guys' thoughts and what you think about these builds. For now, peace out, pa'alam, adios.